My name is Inghilterra, and I am a freshman at Dickinson, and I live an hour north of New York City, in a little town out there. So I wanted to start my presentation off by saying that ever since I was little, my family and friends always said that I was born in the wrong era. And my mom sometimes said that I was an 80-year-old man stuck inside the body of a little boy. Looking back on my 19 years, I actually find this to be true, because my life and interests are backwards in a way. You see, ever since I was around 5 years old, I have been obsessed with history and collecting antiques, so much so they have integrated themselves into my daily life and personality. Honestly, I think I was born with this unusual passion, just because ever since I began to understand the world around me as a baby, I was somehow drawn to antiques. My first word, for instance, was not mommy or daddy, or something that the average baby would first say, but it was light, specifically referring to the antique chandeliers and lamps that surrounded me at my house. I would go to relatives' houses too and would want all the lights turned on and the fans turned on, and it just would amuse me for hours. When I was a toddler, I loved playing with blocks and dollhouses and would construct little cities and rearranging and redecorating dollhouses. I think when I turned 5, my interest in antiques became very clear. When I was 5, my mom showed me how to use my dad's record player. I was in awe of this machine and the records, and I started collecting them and playing them after I found an old portable record player at my grandmother's house. And I haven't stopped collecting vinyl since. I do sometimes say that to people that I might have started or influenced the current revival of vinyl records, because in my generation, just because I've enlightened so many people of my peers over the years to appreciate them as I brought my records everywhere I went, from hockey games, as you can see here, to backyard parties or sleepaway camp. Records were definitely the start for me for the collecting antiques, as just like antiques, they were mostly forgotten about and old. Right now I have about 2,500 records. Half of them were my dad's, but when people knew that I started collecting records, they would give me hundreds of them multiple times, just because they wanted to get rid of them. Soon after collecting records, I became interested in collecting all sorts of antiques, from cameras to radios to antique toys to books, recently to furniture and pinball machines, or anything that would catch my eye at antique stores and flea markets that I would sometimes drag my mom to. It's kind of funny, when I first started reading, the first word I instantly recognized was the word antique, because so when I was in the car with my mom, I would see these words on signs and immediately want her to stop. This sometimes would become a nuisance for her. So she would sometimes say, "Oh, that's a hair salon or a women's boutique. That's not an antique store." At most of the antique shops that we did get to stop at, the proprietors adored me, and some of them I really befriended and learned a lot of the tricks of the trade, insight, and tips for buying. There was only a few times when the owners weren't really friendly or welcoming, or didn't understand why a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old would want antiques. On one occasion, we went to a small town that used to have a lot of antiques, and they kind of just went away. Antique stores and the popularity for that, and one of the owners was a grumpy old man, and he said, hey kid, go break something over there so your mom can pay for it." The one thing that I have yet to do at all my years of collecting is ever break anything in any of the stores I visited. When I was around 12 or 13, my interest began to shift from Victorian, which was kind of the popular style when I first started collecting antiques, to more of the contemporary mid-century, which started to emerge actually when I was 12 to 13, because I kind of was following the market of what people like. So once again, records and music played a role in this change, as at this point I began to listening primarily to 1950s and 60s music, which really were influential to my current obsession of the 1950s and 60s. When I was 13, though, I had to embark, and I was embarking on this new shift of style of interest. I decided that, and with my mom's guidance, that I really needed to sell the stuff that I had collected over the years, because I had a lot of it, and I wasn't really too interested in it. So I decided that I would open up a booth at the Antiques Marketplace in Des Moines when I was 13, and kind of sell most of the stuff off. I'm actually, this week I'm preparing next week to open up another booth there to sell some more stuff because I have just a lot, which isn't also going back to an 80-year-old man. Pretty much I'm 19, but I have almost a lifetime of stuff that people 80 years old would probably be getting rid of. During the time of having my booth, I attended a private middle school that had a strict dress code of a collared shirt and nice dress pants. Because of this, I began to become interested in collecting and wearing vintage clothing on a daily basis. When I went to boarding school for high school, the dress code became stricter as we had to wear a coat and tie every day. Because of this, I was able to go all out and started finding and wearing everything from the 1950s to dinner jackets to crazy 1970s psychedelic leisure suits. I received actually a lot of mixed opinions from my peers, both with collecting antiques and not wearing the typical Vineyard Vines outfits. Some of my friends were confused and often would ask me, "Oh, why are you wearing that jacket? What if someone died in it?" Well, I would simply reply, "Well, if they did, I always wash my stuff, so it doesn't really matter to me. They have cool stories attached, so I don't know why not." However, the majority of my peers and teachers actually thought of my unusual interest in wardrobe to be really cool and interesting. And it was really nice to be able to be in an environment like that where people appreciated what I liked, and then also also understood and never thought that they would appreciate it. I actually convinced a couple times, I convinced some football and hockey players to come with me on the flea markets, and I had a great time with that. One of my best examples of having integrating my interest in my high school was founding of this record club. When I first started the club, I only had around 10 people who would come, and some of them were most of my close friends. However, word got out to the rest of the small student body about how cool this club was, and to my surprise, the membership skyrocketed to about 50 members. And for the next 3 years, we became the most popular club on campus. My passion for buying and wearing secondhand clothing led to me address a big problem on most boarding school campuses and some college campuses of what students will do at the end of the year with stuff from their dorms. The majority of students at my school were, like Dickinson, were from far distances around, and the school didn't really provide free storage or anything to save stuff. So the majority of the students would just throw away perfectly usable items in the garbage. I found this to be just crazy and inexcusable, so I decided to take action and created a free thrift store called the Take It or Leave It. Well, I thought this was a good idea, and a lot of people at the school did too, my other peers and teachers. It literally took a complete year to complete the project because I received so much opposition from the administration who really opposed the whole idea and wouldn't give me a permanent space to set up the school, or to set up the store. After many proposals and meetings, the headmaster finally granted me the usage of the empty office space in the main building along with the storage unit and the attic. When I opened the shop the first few days of my senior year, it instantly became a success and continues to be. It's really amazing the kinds of donations we would get, and to just think that these were once discarded in the trash. For instance, I found in the garbage before I began the project, which actually kind of influenced me to do it, is I found 2 $600 Brooks Brothers blazers, Brooks Brothers sweaters, cashmere sweaters, and never opened reams of paper that were literally in a garbage can. And I confronted the guy about, because he had his name in them, and he said, "Oh, I don't know what to do with them. They weren't my size." And so I knew then I had to do something about it. Another project I did at school was recreate 1960s dorm rooms for the 50th reunions of the 1966 class, 1967 class, which I just provided pretty much all of my stuff, my collection in there. I did kind of cool period rooms. So I just kind of want to end with some of my dorm rooms I've done throughout the years. That's actually why I went to Dickinson here. If you want to see it, let me know. And I've integrated this passion into my life. Honestly, I don't really know how it really kind of started. The 50s and 60s started in my life because I use the language. Sometimes I say swell, words like that. I listen to the music. I really like sort of just the general aesthetic of the era. I mean, I don't like the cultural side that went on there. You know, a lot of people ask me, like, would you want to live back then? And I say yes and no, because I like modern technology. I mean, I have a new MacBook Pro, I have an iPhone, but I like being able to integrate the old into the new. And I use typewriters, I have 22 of them, and I use them. I actually wrote this whole speech on my typewriter. And yeah, I mean, it's really a fun passion, and